So, I went ahead and I pre-made slabs for you all. So that way it's one less thing for you to worry about. So the slabs are about the same size as the tiles that you did. With the slabs, one thing that's different this time around is that I kept the texture, okay? With your tiles, I went ahead and I smoothed all the texture out on both sides. For this, the texture is still there. So you'll notice between the two, okay, one side is nice and smooth, the other has this texture from the canvas. So what you're going to have to do as soon as you get your slab is you're going to take your rib, okay, and you're going to smooth out that texture. So with the rib, okay, the part that's that straight edge, that's what you're going to be using, and you're going to be holding it kind of at an angle. Okay, so we're not zoomed in. Okay, so if this is my slab, this is a side view, okay, I'm going to do it like this, okay? Don't do it completely perpendicular, have it at an angle, because that's going to work out a lot better for you, okay? So I'm just going to start from almost the edge and go in one direction, and I'm lifting at the end, just going back and forth, okay? And then I will go sideways just to get my edges. So doing this not only gets rid of that texture, but it also helps compress the clay. So the clay is made up of all different molecules. So this kind of smushes them all together, so that way you don't have weird cracks that show up. Okay. So you'll do this on both sides of your tile or slab that you get. Okay. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you're doing it on the slab mat. Okay. So each of you has one on the carts. This prevents your clay from sticking. If you do this directly on the table or on your board, the clay is going to stick, and when you go to peel it off, it's going to rip on you. So the slab mat is your friend. Okay. From there, you'll be able to cut out your overall shape. Okay. So if you finished your template, okay, it will all be taped together, but what you'll do is you'll take one of your sides and you'll untape it. Okay, and then you're going to lay it down onto the slab, so just like we did with the tile. And then using your wooden stick or toothpick, okay, you'll go ahead and you'll cut out your shape. You want to be as precise as possible because you want in the end for your front and back pieces to match up and be the same. And I'm holding my template down. You'll notice that it starts to curl a little bit just from the moisture in the clay. Okay. It's gonna come off just like that. And then you'll have your shape cut out. You're going to do this twice, okay? So you'll get one slab, cut out your slab, your shape, and then you'll get a second slab and do the same thing. Okay, so that's the first step that you're going to do. Okay, is cut out two versions of your same shape. Okay, any questions? Okay. From there, you'll be able to go ahead and move your slabs onto your wooden boards. Okay, so your wooden board. Okay, and this is when you'll start to do your carving. Okay, so hopefully you got a chance to at least start thinking about your design that you're going to do. So this is what's going to end up on your piece. And if your design changes a little bit, that is okay, especially if you did something that's more organic and freeform. you might not necessarily be able to replicate it precisely. Okay, so I'm going to start off by kind of drawing out my basic shapes that I have. And with this, don't press super hard. Okay, just draw a little bit at a time. So you can see already mine is a little bit different. Okay, but that's okay because kind of work a little freehand and organically to begin with. So it's okay if it's not identical. So for what you're doing, you might, be more freeform. Okay, it might be more geometric. Okay, so it really depends on what you're doing. If you're doing something that looks more representational, okay, so here I have kind of a poppy that I drew. You can definitely do that as well. So totally your choice how you want to approach your carvings. Okay. Definitely think before you carve and have your design how you ultimately want it. Okay, because once you start fully carving, you won't be able to add clay back. Okay, so with this, if I made a mistake, I can kind of go back in and gently smooth out any mistakes that I made. So you'll kind of have your general line work. Do not just leave it at this, right? Just having really thin lines. This will not show up later when we glaze our pieces. So we're going to be using something called high fire glazes. So it's very fluid, it likes to flow, it will break and do different things over texture. Okay? So by having just really basic line work, it's going to disappear. So you really want to have some of that depth where you're really carving into the clay a little bit more. Okay. It's not like the stains where you can have those thin lines and it'll kind of stick in there. Our high fire glazes won't work like that. Okay. Let's see. Another thing you might want to do is with your sponge. Okay, you can kind of go over your edges a little bit to round them out. So especially if you're a little heavy-handed with your carving out your basic shape, you can definitely do that. You might want to do this before you carve your design. I forgot to do it. Right? But that's okay. If you forget to do that step, you can always kind of go back to it. Okay? Don't drown your clay. Okay? Be really conscious of how much water you're using. A little bit does go a long way. So from here, I'm going to start adding some of that depth. Okay, so this is the example I did yesterday in class. Okay, and you'll see that each one kind of got its own personality. Okay, so looking at this, okay, if I were to build my sculpture, my vase, and have my shape line up, what did I do wrong? Can anyone tell? Where are my designs? One's going to be on the outside and the other one will be where? On the inside. Okay? So that would be a not so fun mistake to make. Okay? So if you did your design, your overall shape as asymmetrical, where it's not the same on both sides, really be conscious of what you did. Because if you do that, okay, you have two choices. Choice number one is to get a new slab and redo it. Or choice number two is to smooth out all the initial drawing you did. Okay, so definitely think before you start carving. Okay, because you don't want to make this mistake, spend a whole block doing some intricate carving, and then have to redo it all. Right? So we'll say that I did this on purpose just to show you, even though I didn't think before I carved. Okay. Okay. Now my inside part is nice and smooth. Okay. Then I'll just go over and flip it. And now I have to redraw everything. Okay, so you can see that's going to take up a lot of extra time that I could have spent doing other stuff. Right now I'm kind of rushing my designs so they're not as thought out as what I had before. Okay. So, questions on doing your carving on the correct side? If you're unsure, if you want someone to double check, just let me know, or Miss A, and we can come back and take a look and make sure that you have your carvings and they'll be on the correct side. So, from here, you'll be able to start to do your pretty carving. Okay, so for what I'm doing, I'm just having each one have its own personality. So I can use the clay tools that I already have. So you can use the ribbon tools. That will be kind of your main go-to. I'm just going in this shape. I'm just going to have the whole thing carved out. Okay? You want to be careful that you don't carve too deep, because then you'll have a hole in your slab. And if you have a hole in your slab, we won't really be able to fix it. Okay? So carve a little bit at a time, and then you can go ahead and smooth, smooth, smooth. Okay? If you have pieces or areas where your finger can be used to smooth, that's going to be kind of your best bet. If your spaces are too small, you can use any of the teal tools. You can also use a paintbrush, wet it with water, and go in with that. I know a lot of you were doing that with the tile project that we did. So now I'll go ahead and I'll do a different design for another tile. Maybe for this one, I'm going to do something like that. Okay. So think back to your tiles and different things that you were able to do with that. Okay. If you don't want to keep your outlines, which is totally understandable, you can smooth them out. Okay, so I'm using my outline as kind of my basis of where my shape will be, and then I can go in with my paintbrush or with my finger, kind of blend that out as well. Okay, so it looks a little less cartoony and you don't have that really sharp outline. Okay, if you like having that outline, go ahead, keep it. But if you want it to flow a little bit more naturally, you can get rid of that line work. Here I'll do some stripes. Okay. And I could leave it just like that, or I could go in and carve out of every other stripe. So that way I have this depth where it's kind of carved in and then sticking out, carved in, sticking out, carved in. If you're not sure as to what you want to do, what you can do is take a little bit of the scrap clay. You can kind of flatten it out to a slab, and you can test different textures and patterns out ahead of time. Okay, so you can see if you like something, then you can go ahead and do it. Okay. Because once again, if you start carving really deep, you won't be able to take it back. Your clay is going to be pretty malleable right now, but next class, the clay will be a little bit drier and you'll be able to go in and kind of perfect stuff. So if you have these little scumblies, so these little balls of clay that pop out, it will be easier to get rid of them next time. Okay. So you'll do that for one of your tiles or shapes, and then you'll do it to the other one. And they don't necessarily have to match up. Okay, if you want the front and the back to be different, you can totally do that. It's your call. If you want your side edges to be just plain, you can do that. If you want your side edges to also have a pattern or texture, you can do that as well. And we'll talk about the edges next class and kind of how that works. So, questions, comments, concerns? Okay, so the goal for today is to cut out both of your shapes, so the front and the back, and start doing your carving. Now, you don't have to have both things fully carved. Definitely take your time. You will have more time next class to do more of your carving. At the end of class, okay, for storing your tiles, we're gonna do it a very specific way. Okay? So you'll lay one tile down on your board, then you'll take a wet paper towel, put that on top. Okay? So you can spritz it with some water, you can dunk it in the water. Okay? You'll lay your second tile on top of that, okay, and make sure that they match up. Okay? And that's going to help keep both of them nice and flat. And then you'll do a second paper towel that's wet on top, so it's this layers of cake almost, with cake, frosting, and then the whole thing goes in your bag.